speaker, runs the puzzlehead.org blog, and works for Research in Motion, maker of Blackberries. He is a Florida native, second Florida native in a row, and
native, not native Indian.
Not native Indian, born in Florida.
And big fan of puzzles. Please say hello to Greg.
I was told by the people that invited me, people like to have fun here. So I decided to start out with something fun here today. Start out with a puzzle here today. I've got a puzzle for you. I'm going to give you a sequence of letters that is going to be the name of a famous movie. Okay, for instance, and the only catch is that all of the vowels and punctuation in the movie title are going to be removed.
You want to call it out?
I want you to call it out.
National anthem something.
National anthem something. Almost. Animal House. Very good. Very good. I'm actually going to duck down a little bit to be able to run this through so you can see. No, I'm good. Thank you. But, okay, so here's the first one.
Star Wars.
Right? Boy, you guys are a lot better at this than I thought.
Fish
Wanda, very good. Kenzie, come and kill me.
Oh, easy. Lion?
Alien.
The Rocky Horror Show.
People call me Forrest Gump.
The Princess Bride. All about Eve. Thank you for that one.
This is Spinal Tap.
This is Spinal Tap. This movie goes to 11.
This is easier since the web, because we're used to reading words that are much.
Right, that's true. That's true.
Some like it hard.
Some like it hot.
Oh, cool.
Snakes on a plane.
Some of these letters seem to live.
The French Connection.
No.
No.
It's close.
The African Queen.
African Queen. Yes.
Caddyshack.
And?
Caddyshack.
Airplane.
And if you have Caddyshack and Airplane, you must have. I heard they're coming on tonight.
Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
Yep.
League of the Road.
League of the Road. Rosie O'Donnell. Beetlejuice. You build it. It comes.
Ocean's 11.
Ocean's 11. Ocean's 11. There's actually two valid answers to this one.
Yep.
Apollo 13 and Apollo 18.
Talladega
Talladega Nights. The Ballad of Ricky Bobby.
Twice.
I think you had. This is the only song I can play on the piano. It's the theme song.
Chariots of Fire.
Chariots of Fire. Chariots of Fire. Guy.
Easy Rider.
Easy Rider. Good. Take these again. Let's see who does this one.
Raising
Arizona.
Right.
Street of Desire.
We've got the James Bond fan in the audience.
And a fair to
And
remember.
a fair to remember. And because we're in Mensa, a beautiful mind. There you go. Thank you. I appreciate that. I hope that was fun for you. I love doing this stuff. You ever listen to, have any NPR listeners here?
A couple.
A couple? NPR listeners? Yeah, you listen to a Weekend Edition Sunday at 8:40 in the morning on Sunday. Puzzle on the air. 8:40 every Sunday morning. You gotta get up and listen to little shorts on Puzzle on the air. It's my life's goal is to get onto Puzzle on the air. I'm failing miserably this one. But that's what I want. I mean, that's what I'd like to do. Actually, I tell you, today, what I'm here to talk to you today is it's related to puzzles. Also relates to a subject that kind of led me in some directions in life that I didn't expect. It's called geocaching. Is there anybody who's familiar with it? Maybe actually a geocacher? Really? Okay. Well, then you know what is geocaching?
Something's hidden around and there's clues to go get it. It's the real world.
Something hidden around, there's clues to go get it. Clues are on a website.
GPS.
You use your GPS to go and figure out how to find these things. According to the definition of geocaching, it is a real-world outdoor treasure hunting game with GPS devices. You take your cell phone and
How
go
to
look
sell
for
GPS devices.
what?
How to sell GPS devices.
You bet. The geocaching.com people are good friends with Garmin. Yeah. Since you're familiar with this, it's for the sport where you are the search engine is the one. But I really like, given some of the containers, people use these kind of questionable plastic rubber-made Tupperware containers. I like the other quote that people use to describe it. I use multi-billion-dollar military navigation satellites to find Tupperware hidden in the woods. I got involved in this sport, if you can call it a sport, more like a hobby, back in 2006. And I started finding caches that were hidden in the world. And I thought, this is kind of fun, this is interesting. And then I discovered something along the way, is that there are multiple kinds of caches. There are kinds that require you to find like multiple stages along the way to get each one. There are kinds that require you to do certain actions or activities. And the ones that I like best is I found that there are ones that give you a puzzle you have to solve. And I have had a lifelong love of puzzles. I subscribe to puzzle magazines. I had never thought about actually creating them before until a coworker who was actually, I saw it sitting at lunch one day doing crossword puzzles, and I started talking to him about them. He actually, one day handed me a puzzle and said, here, we try this. I said, where'd you get this from? He says, well, I wrote it. I said, what do you mean you wrote it? You can't write crossword puzzles. You have to buy them in magazines. You can't write
You wrote it and you solved the puzzle?
He was trying to just show it to me to get me to test solve it for him and try it out and see if it was any good. I never thought about actually creating these. But, so I got interested in puzzle geocaches. And if you are familiar with them, a puzzle cache is very simple. It just says, instead of giving you the coordinates and you have to go find this hidden thing, it gives you a puzzle that you have to solve before you even get the coordinates of where the thing is. And this simple example, Sudoku, you're probably all very familiar with Sudoku.
Yes.
In this example, if this was a Sudoku used to hide a puzzle cache, you would first of all have to go and solve it, clearly. But then in this particular example, you would take the numbers in the colored squares that are in this problem and move them down into the solution bar at the bottom, and then that would give you your coordinates. So in this particular example, your geocache is at north 42 degrees, 24 minutes, whatever that is, and west 90 degrees, 26 point whatever those numbers minutes are. So that is the way that a puzzle cache works. And the fun thing about this, and the fact that it's coupled with geocaching, is that you can be the person that creates the puzzles, and you can publish them. It doesn't cost you anything. So I thought this really gives me kind of an interesting opportunity. I don't need to get a contract with the magazine. I don't need to submit my crosswords to the New York Times and get a rejection letter. I can just go ahead and write them myself and publish them at my own rate for whatever I like doing and get some attention for them. So I started working on this, and I started putting out a lot of these puzzle caches around. And pretty soon, I got a lot of feedback. People noticed that the only things I seemed to be publishing were puzzle caches. And I became known as that guy who likes all the puzzles. And I bumped into one particular cacher, a guy who's, well, let me show you. And in geocaching, I finally bumped into this guy. This guy's name is Obi Jets. And this is now all these pictures were taken off of the profile pages of the people involved. Clearly, I didn't take anything the public doesn't have access to. Here he is on his way to a cache called the Duck Pond. But Obi's a really good guy. He's really nice. He's really supportive. He's really friendly, and he hates puzzles. He hates them. Hates them. In fact, in geocaching, when a puzzle comes out and is published, normally when you do a search for things in your area, it lists everything. But if you don't want to pay attention to a cache, you can hit the ignore button on it, and then it doesn't appear whenever you search for something. OB hits the ignore button every time a puzzle cache is published, and says he refuses to go look for him. And finally, I was talking to him on the phone one day, and he was giving me a hard time about my puzzle obsession. And OB actually started saying, you know, I don't understand. I just don't understand what your attraction is. And I said, well, what's really your problem with puzzles? What's wrong with it? And he asked me the question that kind of led me here to you today. He said, where the heck do you start? I see stuff. These puzzles get published, and if I'm not a puzzle guy, I don't know how to get started on them. I didn't really have a good answer for him at the time. I didn't really know what to tell him in that regard. I just kind of mumbled through something. I don't remember what it was. Well, kind of about the same time, a couple other things came into play that were in addition to OB's question. For one thing, I had just seen a cache that was published out in Seattle that somebody referred me to that they thought was kind of cool. And it's a cache called The Criminal Education. No, it doesn't teach you how to be a criminal. It is published by a guy whose username on geocaching was criminal. But the criminal posted this cache, and it was a lesson. He taught you how to, in this particular case, camouflage something effectively in an urban environment. And it showed you like this picture of a city scene. And you had to find the cache. There's nothing in here that looks like a cache at all. But for this particular thing, the actual cache was the newspaper box. And you had to know the combination to the newspaper box, and then you opened the box, and then that was the container. But it was otherwise perfectly hidden in an otherwise crowded city street. But he used this thing to kind of teach you about how this worked. I thought, that might be kind of useful. Maybe I could write a lesson about how to solve puzzles. And then another thing that came along was I wanted to do something big. One of the other things OB told me was that he liked, I asked him, okay, if you don't like puzzle caches, what do you like? And he said, well, I like the kinds of, there was one in particular that he liked, where a guy had published one in a series, and you had to get a piece of information from that. And then it was telling a story, and then the story continued from each cache to the next to the next. And you collected information along, and then finally he published one, which was like the murder mystery, the big reveal and final to the story, but you had to put it all together using the pieces he collected. So I thought, I want to do something like that. I want to take the idea of answering his question about where do you start, and then thus the Puzzle Solving 101 series was born. And this is actually if you go to the cache page for this is the first lesson for it. So what is this Puzzle 101 series? It's actually a series of geocaches spread out all over Broward County. My goal was to get as much attention for it as possible. So I created a series of 9 caches and divided them up across the county. If you look at the map, they're all plotted everywhere. If you drove from one to the other on the shortest route, you have to drive about 85 miles to get to them. But you'd stay in Broward County. But I figured that way, anybody who's searching, no matter where you live, is bound to stumble across one that's nearby them, and maybe then they find the rest. So, but each one is then organized as a lesson. Each of them teaches a different puzzle-solving lesson. So the 9 in the series, depending upon what you want to know, you can go to that particular one. And the way I decided to go and pick these lessons was by looking at what was really in use in geocaches around the area. I actually did a query of all of the puzzle caches in Florida. There's like 1,000 of them at the time that I did this. And I went through all of them and said, what kind of puzzle is this? And sorted them all into the different buckets, and they seemed to fall into these roughly 9 categories of things. And then that was where I came from. So that was the genesis of this.
Can I just ask you something?
Sure, go
Back
ahead.
up?
Yes.
Could you explain again what a geocache is? I'm getting the
Okay.
impression that it's a thing hidden at a certain place.
Yes, here's the thing. I suppose I'm a geocacher. I sign up, and I want to place a treasure chest for someone. I get permission to place it on a particular property, a piece of location. A lot of parks allow you to hide them. If you're a private property owner, you can get permission, especially if it's your property. You can hide them. Like, for instance, I know a friend of mine who's a geocacher who has created a geocache, and it's a mailbox, and it's a mailbox in front of his house. And you take your GPS device, it's either your cell phone or your GPS unit, and you go measure the location of wherever it is. You write down those coordinates, and you publish those online. There's a particular site called geocaching.com, and there are several others, other ones as well, but geocaching.com is the big one. And you can say, I have a cache hidden at this location, and it's this difficult to find, and it's this hard to get to because some of them, especially out west or where there's open areas, can require hikes, can require kayaks, can require scuba equipment. It can be pretty complicated, seriously.
But what's in it?
But what's in it, but what's in it is depends upon who hid it. And the theory is that you're supposed to take something and leave something. And the idea is you want to leave something not hugely of value, but of value or interest to you. And that might be of value or interest to the other people that come along. What ends up really happening is people take and they don't give, for the most part. And they take for the most part and they don't always give back. And so that part of it doesn't really end up very interesting. But the interesting part I found of geocaching is not necessarily the things that are in the container, but the places it takes you to. I have gone on geocaching trips, like when I'm on vacation. I have found the things I wouldn't have found otherwise: waterfalls, lava tubes you can climb into, beautiful vistas you wouldn't know about otherwise. So for me, it's the location and the exciting things it takes you to. But there's some other parts of it that would be in regard to the puzzle. And then you can log in online and share your experience in finding it with other people. So that's what geocaching is in.
And you know what, and then I don't know GPS either, but can't you just take the coordinates and look at the map?
You can, but the interesting part about geocaching is sometimes people make it hard. Like with the newspaper box, okay? They'll take you to a location, but they'll get you within 100 feet. Well, just within this room, think of all the places that you can hide something by itself. Yeah, you can get to this room, but where is it once you're actually here? And what does it look like? Things range from, giant boxes to like film canisters or smaller. Yes?
How close can these modern devices get you?
They can get you to within about 30 feet. Within about 30 feet. There's some improvements to GPS that are coming along that should get you even closer than that, but 30 feet is about 10 meters, basically.
What are some of the things you have found in geocaching?
I have found, I have found a lot of people leave signature items. Where like if I go around and go places, I might have created a particular item that describes me or pertains to me that I might leave as a record in each cache. Like I know there was a woman, her caching name was Yuzawa Cat, K-A-T. She left mouse traps. I'm hopefully not loaded. I have one of her mouse traps. So, but let me move on with this one, and I'll take some more of these questions again here. So here's the topics. The first two topics of this really deal with just puzzle solving in general approaches that you're going to use, or some tactics that you can specifically apply to geocaching. Like for instance, if I know that I say that a puzzle is here, well, my puzzle isn't really where I say it is, but it's nearby. If you know that wherever you say it is, that the actual solution to your puzzle has to be within 2 miles of that, that's a rule for placing them. You can use that information sometimes to kind of narrow down your search and figure out where it is.
Quick GPS question before we get away from it.
Sure.
Even though it's only accurate within a certain range, can you take a reading, move 50 feet, take another reading, do that a number of times, and statistically improve your information?
You can do that. There's some other ways that you can get even more accurate than that. But if you want, we can talk about some of those at the end. You can kind of sort of improve upon that. But for all intents and purposes, about 30 feet is close enough to be able to do this particular hobby. So, no, not too easy. Some people make it intentionally hard to do as well. But in addition to the general tactics, let's see here. In general tactics, so here's some of the other puzzles that specifically I've written lessons up on how to solve. Trivia challenges, you probably all, obviously you know movies, you like trivia. Wordplay, crossword puzzles, cryptograms, that sort of thing. Actually, mathematical puzzles, like I had a cache I published that gave you 3 points through the GPS coordinates of 3 locations and a radius at each one. You had to draw 3 circles and find where those 3 circles crossed. If you remember your high school geometry. Logic problems. Logic problems are pretty common, Sudoku being the most popular one of those kinds. Cryptography, this is one I like particularly. Cryptograms in the simple end, all the way up to Enigma machines and little streaming block ciphers for computer cryptography and things beyond. If it's a cryptographic method, it is out there and being used. Steganography meaning hidden writing. Hidden writing, like for instance, if I wrote a letter and I wanted to embed a message in it, I could say like every 10th, I could tell you privately, like every 10th word in this message is the real message and the rest is just noise. And then that way I might be able to conceal a message to you. And we'll look at, there's plenty of examples of this. And then lastly is collaborative thinking. Things that are, where you gotta just really kind of think in ways that you might not expect. And, this is an example you're probably familiar with, but this is probably the most famous example of lateral thinking. Are you familiar with the nine dots problem?
Yeah.
You know the 9 dots problem?
You have to go out and
You got to draw 4 lines, connect all the dots, but you're right. You've got to go outside the box to solve it, to be able to do it. You can, and Walt Disney used to use this in working with his teams to kind of train people about ways to get outside their normal modes of thinking. I have created some of these. I hate these, by the way. I have written these, and I still hate them. So because I'm not very good at them. But that's by definition. You just have to know how to get outside your normal comfort zone. So this is where I did. I took these lessons and I put them together to form. So I have my concepts that I want to teach, and I've got 9 things that I want to teach people about. Well, I came up with a standard form. I said, well, if you're going to teach a lesson, you're a school teacher, you need to have like the lesson, the thing that you want to teach people. And then you need to have some exercises that kind of show how to apply this knowledge that you've just conveyed. And the last thing, you got to give them homework. You got to give them an actual real world problem to solve. Well, for me, I've got the lesson, I've got some worked examples, and then the problem to solve is use what I just taught you to go and find a cache in a particular location. And so let me go ahead and walk you through an example. This is probably a little difficult to read here, so I will read through some of this. But this is actually the very first one in the series. And I have put together a problem that says you've got 2 people, Oliver and May, and they both are holding a picnic, and they're going to go buy wine to take to their picnic. And they are heavy drinkers, so each is going to buy a bottle of red, a bottle of white, and a sparkling wine to take with them. Now, and you can get this online. By the way, if you want to see this in detail later, you can go and find this. I've got some links on page for it. But the puzzle is Oliver likes everything from the north, and May likes everything from the west. So given these wines and given the locations, and notice that each wine has an explicit or implied location. Let me go up here, and I'm going to point up here. Like for instance, if I'm doing this puzzle, Hobart's in Australia, Sonoma and Napa are in California, but one of them is more western than the other. Who knows which one's the west? Napa or Sonoma? Have you been to Napa and Sonoma?
Yeah, but we were drunk.
Sonoma actually is west of Napa. Stockholm, Sweden, and of course, Bokajava is in the middle from Madagascar. So these, if you looked at the red and you went and figured out where all these things were, you'd find that Sonoma is the westernmost one, so that's the one May wants. And Stockholm is the northernmost one, so that's the one that Oliver wants. So if I go ahead and follow this process for everything else, Oliver wants things for the 26, 5, and 258, and May wants things for 80, 16, and 948, and put these together, and you get the coordinates. North, 26 degrees, 5.28 minutes. West, 80 degrees, 16.948 minutes. And how did I get across there? This is some of the things that you learn in this lesson. Like you learn to look for groups of 14 things, like 14 numbers tends to imply a coordinate. I've got 14 numbers, and if you assume that there's a 0 here, a leading 0, you got 7 digits here, and you got 7 digits here. So if you know you're supposed to look for 14 things, that is a hint that you're on the right track if you stumble across something that is a group of 14. Okay? So this is one I wrote. I think, let me give you another example. One of the other things I like about puzzle solving is there's a guy, he's a local cacher. His cacher name is Punctatus, which is Latin for spotted. I don't know what else that means. That's all I know about him. I've never met him, but I've seen his puzzles. And he has a real knack. He has something else I learned that I wanted to pick up from him. He has this view that your puzzle should relate to your location. And your puzzle should be kind of like a joke, and the location of where it takes you should be kind of a punchline or a surprise that you didn't expect that relates to that. And I tried to echo that in the series. Let me give you an example of one of Punctatus' puzzles. He's got a puzzle called Off the Deep End. That's the puzzle. That is all you get is that picture. It's called Off the Deep End. Off the Deep End. This is the puzzle, is all you get.
There's 14 flags.
There are 14 flags. That is very good. We will get to those. You are correct. That is the solution. So now, okay, you found their 14 flags. What's the coordinates?
Resistor colors?
Resistor colors is an excellent idea. There are active uses in Broward County. There's one called resistance is futile that requires you to decode resistor colors.
A lot of the digits are white.
A lot of digits are white. So let me take a point on one other thing before we go. You're on the right track. Let me diverge you here just a little bit. See these swim lanes?
Yeah.
Notice anything about this swim lane?
Oh, Morse code.
It's Morse code. He has hidden
Oh.
Morse code on that part of the swim lane. Unfortunately,
Make it bigger.
it's a red herring. Close, but no cigar. No, you are right. It is the flags. It is the flags. Now, but okay, we know now it's the flags, but there's a hint in this puzzle to what the solution is. The balls.
Balls have 7 colors.
The balls do have 7 colors. I'll accelerate it. The colors of the balls don't matter. You know, the balls don't matter. But what are those balls?
Which flags can we get?
They're beach balls.
Ah.
Where are the beach balls?
In the pool.
They're in the pool.
They belong on the
You have balls in the pool. They're pool balls. So now we've shifted the meaning of pool balls. You match the colors up to the pool balls and you treat the cue ball as zeros. There's the answer. The solution, those coordinates, 26 to 35.32 and blah, 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 they take you to a billiard park.
Listen, how did you, what are the numbers top and bottom mean?
I just put them there for clarity, top and bottom. It's just to kind of make it easier for you to read. Yeah, that's it. And these two are blue. Yep, so the blues are 2, the greens are 6s, the pinks are 3s, and well, it's all billiard balls. Yep, off the deep end. That's one of my favorite puzzles. Favorite puzzles ever. So I beat myself up over this one. I get some pretty heavy hints to solve this one. But in retrospect, what else would it be? So anyway, so let me go back to the puzzle solving series. So now I've got some ideas. I start putting out these caches. I want them to teach lessons. I want the puzzle to relate to the location and be something fun. But when you're taking a class, you can't just take the class and do the lessons. You have to be tested. So I need one final puzzle to wrap it up, and that's the final exam. And of course, if you take an exam and you pass the class, you get a diploma. If you choose to go and find the final exam, if you decide to solve this series and you go out and find it all, and you go to the cache, this kind of answers your question about what do you find in caches. I believe that since people don't really leave things of value, I would. And so what I do is I leave you a diploma and I give you a graduation present, which is a CD that you can pick up.
Only the first person gets it.
No, there's one for everybody. Every person who comes to finish it, I keep it stocked with diplomas and graduation presents. So you finish the graduations, you finish the puzzle series, and you get that. So let me tell you about so now I've got the series out. Well, it didn't really kind of go out this way. Remember, OB said he liked it where that series he said he liked was it was released incrementally over time. I didn't just push all 10 of these things out at once. I published the first one, and then the second one a couple weeks later, and I kind of dragged it out. And what ended up happening is that some people got interested, and a couple of people really got interested. Because in geocaching, one of the big bragging rights is first to find. If you're first to find, you've got bragging rights. Hey, I was first to find. People even can't keep track of the number of first to finds that they have. So pretty soon, the people that were competing for first to find started to percolate to the top, and I could watch them. While watching, every time somebody logged a found it, I could see who was getting involved. And by the time the final one was about to come out, here's the 3 people that were involved. This guy, Skip Linden. Here's Skip Linden holding a really big geocache. That's probably one of the biggest geocaching containers I've ever seen. Skip Linden, he's an IT guy here in Broward County. This is a woman named Lori Bird. Lori Bird's a friend of mine. Here she is jumping for joy at having found a Caching Across America cache. She has found a cache in all 50 states, twice. She found one in all 50 states, and then she heard about this Caching Across America thing that requires you to find a specific cache in all 50 states, so she had to go and do it again. Fortunately, she's an airline pilot for Americans, so she gets around. she's lucky that way. And lastly is my friend Antimony 13. This is Sharon. She is a emergency room doctor down at Memorial in the pediatric ward. So if you've ever had a child with a broken arm down in Pembroke Pines, you may have taken your child to her. But here she is. She's making first to find on one of my other puzzle caches here. So you got Antimony 13, Sharon, Antimony 13, Roy Bird, and Skip London are all in a race. Well, okay. So let me tell you a little something about the final exam. I put a clue, a little piece of information inside the first 9 caches. I wanted you to have to physically go to all 9 things, get that piece of information, and then use that somehow to finish the final exam. I wanted to reward people who actually took the time to visit everything, because there's a lot of people who do these puzzles. They see them come out and they just solve them on their own, like you'd solve like a crossword puzzle or a Sudoku or anything else online without ever actually going and finding it. But I wanted to reward the people that went out there and actually did it. So I created these pieces, and then I structured the final exam as a series of 7 puzzles. And you started at 1, and to get to the next one, you had to solve the first one. It would unlock the next one, and unlock the next one, and unlock the next one. And I'm a software guy by art, so I wrote a web page that has all of these things. I came up with the code to go and drive it, and I kept a log to see who was hitting it and to make sure that it was working. Well, I could see, when the final exam came out, I could see Skip London, Lori Bird, and Antimony 13 guessing and making various attempts to try to solve it through time. And what I saw was that Lori Bird and Antimony 13 are sitting here neck and neck. I mean, they're minutes apart from each other. And they're emailing me at the time saying, how is she? Where is she? What is she doing? They want to know where the other one is because they want first to find, you see. Skip London is a little bit behind them, significantly enough that he's not. He's at the rate they're going, he's not going to make it in comparison to these 2. So what I discovered though is I went to bed that night, it wasn't solved, and I woke up the next morning and I saw a find it log, and the find it log was they had been colluding the entire time and were sitting at the same table and were intentionally harassing me. But that solving this puzzle was the first time they'd ever met in person, and they've been geocaching buddies ever since. So, yeah, that makes me happy. Makes me angry, but it makes me happy. So, but since then, where are we going with it? Oh, by the way, Skip London did get some credit. Skip London got on the Dean's List for the puzzle, and the only rule about Dean's List is you do not talk about Dean's List. So since then, PS101 has gone viral. And what happened was in April 2009, this guy Mark Winslow came down to Weston on vacation, bumped into one of the geocaches as he did a query for local caches, got the whole series done in 3 days before he and his wife and kids had to go back to North Carolina, liked it so much that he asked if he could make a copy of it in North Carolina. And he has a cache that says, go solve all of these puzzles here in South Florida, bring the answers back to North Carolina, and then use them in some way to go and find something new. So he was the first. And actually, this is Skip Winslow standing on the corner in Winslow, Arizona, actually, which there is a geocache there. In May of that year, I got mentioned, without my knowing, I found an incoming link to my blog that says, hey, you were mentioned on the Podcacher podcast. What the heck is the Podcacher podcast? It's the single largest, most read, listened to podcast related to geocaching in the world. They have thousands and thousands of listeners worldwide. All of a sudden, somebody mentioned it on the show. And I got interviewed by another podcast in February that year. In May, I got named the Geo Final series named Geocaching Puzzle of the Day for that day. So it's taken off and gotten a lot more attention than I ever expected it would. It is actually, there are copies of it now in all of these states. It has been translated into Slovakian. It has been deployed into Okinawa, Japan. There's a version in the UK. I've got solvers from all over the world, and I gave them a way to go ahead and log things remotely about travel. I'll explain that later, but still don't get time. Yes, but here's where it's all been. This is where copies of this series have now gone to. And generally, people liked it. So this is something I've done. It's been pretty rewarding for me. I'm going to go ahead and run one more puzzle for you.
You know what we want to know, though?
What's that?
Did Opie ever do it?
No. No. Although different cache, he found the final exam by accident. So he logged it, so he found it, but you know,
That movie is very long.
Yep. Okay, so let me go ahead and switch over to the final thing I want to run for you, which
Eric?
is,
Eric?
yes.
Do people who did road rallies, do they kind of get into this
I don't
geocaching?
know. My brother-in-law was a big road rallier for a long time, and it does seem like it does seem like it would work out similar, definitely, doesn't it? Okay, let me go to number 3 here. Okay, here we go.
Have you ever seen the show Numbers?
No.
One of their plot lines was based on, it was basically people trying to be the first
Trying to
finders,
be the first to find it.
and one guy was murdering the other.
Oh. there was an episode of Law and Order SVU where two geocachers stumble across a dead body. But they were portrayed unflatteringly. Let's just put it that way.
I
Okay.
did a lot of
Use body
fun
for
with
cash.
it.
Well, yeah, the cat body was on the cache. Once they're in the cache is in the police station, and Olivia Benson shows the two guys the cache where she's questing, and they both grab it because they both want to be first to find it. I'm making this up. So, okay, so I want to before we run out of time, one last thing I wanted to do is I'm going to go ahead and run through question number 1 of the final exam with you, because I think you'll like it. Again, this is the easy one. The next 6 are they get harder as you go along. But here's the final. This is the final puzzle, and you will need your geosense. Your geosense is what you get when you go geocaching. So each of the answers is this is again kind of a common format to what you hear on the puzzle in here on Weekend Edition. Each of the answers is a 2-word phrase beginning with G and O. So I'll give you a clue. You tell me what the 2 words. So here's the first one. So to socialize romantically, go out. I'm going to stay over here then.
Yeah.
Okay? You guys are really good at this. I got to stay over here. Roll. Okay, kitchen appliance.
Gas.
Gas oven. Very good. To emit.
Give
Give
out.
out. Give off.
Give off.
Give off. Okay. Positive sign.
Good
Good
omen.
omen. Good omen. A legal speech impediment.
Gag order.
Gag order. Gag order. Scallion.
Green
onions. Right. The rare Fakahatchee balloon.
Orchid, some kind of orchid.
Yeah,
Ghost
It
orchid.
is the ghost orchid. Let me tell you, I've taken time under one of the most difficult caches in Florida is called the ghost orchid. It's out in the Fakahatchee. And it requires like 8 or 9 different stages. And the guys who put it out, this big army, it requires like wading in water with snakes, and slime to get to. And it's supposedly one of the most rewarding things if you want to go there, which I haven't. But one of the guy who published it was the people that went out looking for it got mad at the guy who published it because they couldn't find one of the stages. They spent hours in the swamp. And it turns out the guy switched the digits. Accidentally. Accidentally switched the digits. But yeah, ghost orchid, it's out in the back actually. If you get a chance, it's supposedly it's very rewarding if you go and do that. Okay, casino.
Gambling odds.
Gambling odds. And where DirecTV and Dish Network satellites are.
Geostationary or
Not
geosynchronous.
geosynchronous orbits.
Geostationary.
Geostationary orbits. Yes, geostationary. Now you notice that I've underlined some of the letters here. And this is presented to you in this list. And what you have to do is take the letters out of those things. These are the ones that you end up getting. So you have to come up with a single word that describes, and there's 2 answers to this. One's serious and one's kind of funny, is what's a multicolored fence with a lot of entrances using those letters.
All of those things?
All of those letters, one word.
In order?
No, you scramble those letters.
Scramble.
Scramble them up.
Variegated.
Variegated. A fence is variegated. It's kind of
But variegated is not a fence.
well,
That's
No.
the joke part.
that's the funny part.
Oh, gated, no, I'm
Yes,
sorry. It is.
gated. Yes,
Funny.
that's it. It is variegated. So yes, now are you already done with puzzle? With number 1. You're ready to move on to the next 6. Maybe get harder. And let me go back to one last thing on the other presentation, and I'll finish up with is that one. And right there. If you want to know more, go to puzzlehead.org. If you go there with your smartphone right now, there's a link. There's a post on there that has links to everything I showed you, links to all those people, links to the series, links to
What if you don't use smartphones?
if you don't do smartphone, you can use it. And when you get home, just remember puzzlehead.org. It's in your program. It's in your program.
Make friends with somebody with a smartphone.
Make friends with someone who has a smartphone or an iPad or a GPS unit. And go find them yourself. Any other questions about it?
How many people have completed the series now?
I think it's something like 27, 30 different people around there. There's a way you can rate a cache. If you find it, if you've logged and found it, you can, if you're a member of geocaching.com, you can rate that, things that you find. You can give it a favorite point. You know, you can hit the like button on it, essentially. If you look at the ratio of the number of people that found it to the number of like points, the number of like points to the total number of people that found it as a measure of how the quality of a cache, I think in 2000, end of 2010, this was the top rated cache in Florida. It's the most favorite relative to the number of people that found it. So the most favorite cache was the Disney World cache, but that was because thousands and thousands of people find it. Yeah, that's easy. Any other questions?
Are there any devices that are better?
Any devices that are
In
better?
other words, do you say, an iPhone's great, but there's a better thing than an iPhone, or there, et cetera?
The thing that's great about an iPhone is that there is, and I think that there's, I don't know for certain, but there might be one for Android also, is that there's an integrated app with the phone. All you have to do is just walk outside, turn on your phone, run the app, and it has an arrow that says, go here. I mean, it can't get any easier than that if you want to get started with geocaching. It's really kind of ideal for that. There are more sophisticated devices. I don't use them. I have a very low-end GPS device that I use. It's very difficult to use, but it was cheap. So I use it. Anything else?
Does Research in Motion make a device that's good for this?
They do make a device that's good for this. There's no app for it yet. So one of these days I may get around to writing one. Yes, they have devices that do all this. I mean, if I can go out and you can actually do it. I've actually done this. You can actually run the map app and go out there and it will give you the coordinates and let you go ahead and start pursuing it. But it's not nicely integrated with the other two. I wish it was. Somebody should write them. So, yes.
October's National Testing Month. You gonna take our test?
Is that the 4th or the 5th time you've asked me that?
I'm just starting.
How many more times does she have to ask? She'll do
All right.
it.
Well, if you have any other questions, I'll be around here probably for most of the rest of the day. Thank you all.